How's everybody doing today? Today we're going to look at access reports. Now, access reports are a little bit like queries in that they let you display information, but reports allow you just a whole lot more functionality in how that information is displayed. You can add titles, you can add page numbers, you can do grouping and sorting and subtotals and just make the data look very, very professional. Query is kind of a quick, simple way to get data out, but if you wanted to use this data at a board meeting or another meeting where you're going to be showing it to your colleagues, you want the data to look professional. So that's where you can use reports. I'm in the same data file, class 102. I'm going to make a report based on the payroll file. To do a report, I just click on Create, and then I go to the Report Wizard. The first window that comes up allows me to select a table or a query. I'm going to select the payroll table. The next thing I get to do is just add fields. Like a query, I don't have to have all of these fields in the report. I can just select the ones I want. I want to have first name, last name, hours, level, rate, and pay. Notice I'm just clicking the single arrow to move a field over. If you click the double arrow, it moves all fields over. If you get a field over here and you decide you don't want it, you can click on that field and then click the arrow pointing to the left and it'll put it back. So I select my fields, I click Next, and the next thing it allows me to do is add grouping. Now for a simple report like payroll that's just based on one table, we usually don't use grouping. When we get into the advanced report series and we're dealing with relational databases, we are going to add grouping. In this case, I'm just going to hit Next, and it takes me to a window where I can do sorting. For the report that I have, I think the most appropriate way to sort it is going to be last name. So I go ahead and select last name and I hit Next. The next thing you get to do is specify the layout of your report and the orientation. Tabular is the most effective if you're doing a simple report like payroll, so I'm going to keep it at tabular. If you had a very wide report, you could switch it to landscape. This one's not especially wide, so I'm going to keep it at portrait. I hit Next, and the last thing I get to do is just add a title for my report. I'm going to just call mine Payroll Report. I hit Finish, and what it's going to do is it brings me into report preview mode, and I can take a look at how this report looks. Now the report wizard's great because it lets you get a report quickly on the screen, but there's always some things that you're probably going to want to change. It chopped off some letters here, like it chopped off the E on last name, chopped off the E on first name. I don't like that. I don't like how these things are spaced. They're a little too far apart for me, so any changes that I want to make, I have to go to Design View. So I'm going to close this print preview, and that puts me into Design. Now, one thing that's real important is to understand the report sections. You've got report header, details, page footer, report footer. These sections are critical to understanding how the report works. Where the data is will have a big effect on how it is displayed. Anything that's in this section, the report header, is only going to appear once at the very top of the report. Now this report, since it's based on payroll, it's probably going to be a 10 or 12 page report. Remember, there's 566 records in this data table, so it's going to be a pretty large report. But whatever's up here just appears one time, the first page, top of the first page. Anything in your page header is going to appear at the top of each page. These things are all your report, your field titles. Here's your detail. This is actually your data. So even though this says last name and this says last name, they're very different. This is just the title, last name, but this is all your actual data. So like Ford, Smith, Jones, that's what appears in your details. Your page footer, anything in your page footer will appear at the bottom of each page. The report wizard adds a few little niceties for you. It has =now, which pulls the system clock time, so it pulls the date and time off. and then it's got page and page of page. So this will, on each page, for example, put page 1 of 10, page 2 of 10, page 3 of 10, etc. So it adds those for you. If you don't like them, you can just delete them. What I want to do next is I want to just play around. Like I said, I've got too much room for a lot of these fields. So I'm going to play around with moving and readjusting the size of a lot of fields. To click, if you want to select a field, you just click on it. If I click on it, I notice I've got a movement box in the upper left, a gray box. So if I move to that, my cursor changes to a 4-way cursor. So if I wanted to move this over a little bit, I just click here, I move it over, and it's done. If I want to readjust the size of it, any of these little orange boxes on the side of the field represent sizing boxes, so I want to make this a little bit bigger. I just click and drag on that orange box. What I'm going to do is, for hours, I'm going to make that smaller. For level, I'm going to make that smaller. For rate, I'm going to make that smaller. And now I'm going to start, I'll make this one a tiny bit bigger. But now I'm going to start moving these over. So I'm pretty much just either adjusting the size or adjusting the position based on whether I click on one of the orange boxes or whether I click on the gray box. So I've got my all these items in my page header I've got done. I'm going to pretty much do the same thing here to the items in my details so they all line up. Alright, I pretty much realigned and resized my details fields. So I want to take a look at how things look now. So I'm going to go to Report View, and I see, okay, the E is back here, so that's big enough. My items are a lot better spaced, they're not so far away. I see here, I don't like how hours is a little bit over, levels a little bit over. One thing that I can do is, instead of having these fields right justified, I can center them under the title here, and I think that's going to look better. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Go to Design View. If you want to affect multiple fields, what you can do, if I click on it and then I hit Control and click again, it will do, I'll get both those. But something that's even faster, if you just click and drag a box around the fields that you want and then let go, it'll get all of them. So that's a very quick way to do things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click the Home button, and I've got these fields highlighted so they're active, and what I'd like to do now is just go and tell that I want those centered. So I'm going to hit Center, and now I'm going to go see how that looks. Alright, so I go up here, I hit View, Report View, and I like this. This is a lot better. Everything's nicely centered under the titles. One other thing I'm going to do, I do want this pay to be formatted as currency. So I'm going to go back to Design, and I'm going to format it as currency. One thing you want to be very careful of, remember, this is just a title. This is your actual details, like the actual pays. So this is the one I want to make sure that I'm clicked on. I'm going to bring up the property window here so I can go up here and click, and I'll get the property window. You can always tell which one you are looking at because it says pay here. I'm going to click on the Format tab, and I'm going to go to Currency, and for decimal places I really just want 0 decimal places. So I go back now to look at it, and I see, okay, it's got the dollar amount there, so I'm happy with that. One other item I wanted to talk to you about is using a filter. When we did queries, we could do things like specify, I just want to see level 1 people, or I want to see people who made over a certain amount. And you can do the same thing with a report. Right now, this report, as I mentioned, it's going to be about 12, 13 pages. It's going to be a long report. I'm starting to scroll through here. There's 566 records. So maybe you don't want to see everybody. Maybe you just want to see the level 1 people. So what you can do is, if I go to design, for this one, you have to make sure that you are on the report design. So if you click anywhere down here in the gray area, you just click. I notice up here it says report, so I know I'm on the report property sheet. I'm going to select the data tab, and I'm going to look at the filter. Now I'm just going to widen this out a little. The filter is the same thing as a criteria in a query. Remember, if we wanted to have just level 1 people, under the level column we put =1. Since I don't have this broken up into columns, I do have to specify the actual field name. But it's pretty much the same thing. I'm just going to put level =1. I do have to specify that I want the filter on. This means actually make the filter active when I load the report. So I've got level =1, I've got filter is on. I'm going to run this thing again and see what it looks like. So I go up here to view, report view, and I see now I only have the level 1s. You can add multiple criteria to this filter. Let's do this. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to design. I'm still looking at report. I'm going to put level =1. I also want to say that you have to have made over $400. So I've got level =1 and pay greater than 400. So now I've got 2 criteria for my filter. I'm going to view it, and I notice it's only showing me people who made over $400. The next thing I wanted to show you is just how you can make adjustments to the vertical orientation of your report. I played around a lot with the horizontal orientation, meaning I wanted these fields smaller. I wanted them a little bit more compact so it wasn't just spreading out over the whole page. But I wanted to show you what happens when you alter the size of one of your sections. So I'm going to just go to View, Report View. So this is what it looks like right now. Notice there's, not that much room between my title and my fields. I'm going to go to Design, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the report header significantly larger and just say, alright, what effect did I have? If I go to my view again, I see, okay, that made this larger. So if I want more room up here, I can do that. And go back to design, move this back up to where it was. Let's see what happens if I make this one larger. Now I see there's a gap here. And put this one back where it was. Let's take a look at details. Details is probably the most interesting one. I'm going to bring this down, and I'm going to take a look. I don't know if you noticed, but I have now quite a gap between each row, whereas I did not have that before. If you want your data spaced out more, just so it's more visible, you can just make your details section wider. I do want to put this back down to where it was, but that gives you a pretty good idea of some of the things you can do to just change the vertical orientation. I can even squeeze this a little bit further and get my rows closer together if I wanted to get more rows on one page. And the last thing I wanted to show you is just all the standard stuff that we can do in Word or Excel with different fonts or colors, we can do in the report. Right now I'm clicked on my report title. I went to my Home tab, and I can say, all right, you know what, I want this in red. I want this to be size 24. I want this to be in a different font type. So all that stuff that we do in Word or that we can do in Excel, you know, I can do it here. Maybe these, I think they're just too light, so I'm going to highlight all of these. Remember, I can just click and drag a box around all these so they're all highlighted. I could say I want these to all be darkened in. I want them to be bold. I go back and take a look at this report. So this is how it looks now, but pretty much anything you want to do with fonts, font sizes, coloring, you know, kind of the sky's the limit there. You can even add a picture if you want. Anyhow, hopefully this was helpful to you. You do have a couple reports to do for homework. One is going to be based on the payroll table. Another is going to be based on the people table. I will be asking you to do, you know, like the spacing that we did. I will be asking you to use a filter on at least one of these. So hopefully this video was helpful to you, and we'll see you next time.